When it came to my dad, he might as well have been a convenience store, because that is all he lived by, what was convenient for him. He was a strange, confusing man, hating someone so horribly and then loving them, sometimes within a sentence. It's hard to wrap the hypocrisy and malice of my dad because he was hard to catch up to. On one hand, my sister was a bitch like her mother, whom he accused of blocking this mystifying future he would have had she not been a whore that trapped him with a pregnancy. Once again, my dad absolved himself from the relationships he started, unless they became his weapon. I was reading about how abusive fathers often turn a child into an emotional scapegoat, me, and their firstborn into their emotional defense, and it sounded right. It's always strange how you think what is unique to you can be found in someone else's story or psych book. My father always threatened me that he would use my sister to defend him, as if we were both members of Lin Manuel Miranda's concept album Warriors, which, by the way, excellent. He would speak about her almost like she was his first son, and dehumanize her into his personal weapon, the bold shield he could use to cover his cowardly acts. It was perfect because A, she would never believe me, and B, even if she did, she would never want a sister more than she wanted a dad and even her mom. She'll protect me, he would grimace threateningly. Strangely enough, I never asked him from what. What was I doing that was so threatening? I mean, he was an addict, a bigamist, a thief. I was 8. And then I realized he was probably inventing stories about me because he needed her to be the bold shield, again, covering his coward. Yet it was not always that way. His resentment of her birth changed the more she grew, and he was able to turn her into his guard dog, barking at family members, particularly women that he did not like, and and claiming and using her to confront them on how he swore they behaved towards him. He knew it would devastate me as a child if my sister fought with me, especially because there was a 20-year age gap. I did not realize my father was threatening me with a near adult, which was absolutely disgusting of him, but true to his character. I just knew I did not want my sister to hate me, especially if my complaint was that my dad did not love me. It just did not measure up as a proper consequence to a very real issue. He thought it would hurt me because, as he said, she was mean like her mom and yelled like him. I hated getting yelled at, which is surprising considering that is all I ever was, yelled at. I cannot understand how I feared so much more of what I already had in abundance. Yet in an odd way, I did not fear my sister for what my father claimed she would do to me. I feared grieving another person I really wanted to love me. To my parents, there was always something wrong. For my father was life itself, for my mother was probably a dirty dish. Yet I had this delusion that because we were siblings and younger than the adult children that raised us, we could surpass their messiness and get to the fun because that is what I wanted. Everyone thought because I'm fun, I was having fun, but I really wanted company. I assumed siblings would be like that. Fun, simple, and not having enough life experiences to excuse why they were not, like my dad. Yet I never had a shot with her because she was his weapon, and he was going to keep her that way. All right, let's discuss, let's heal. So, my father my father changes his stories a lot because he's a liar, but manipulation is about changing your story according to convenience. And my sister did this thing, and I'll bring it up in a future episode. She wrote all these letters or confronted a few family members, particularly his sisters and his mom, about how they were treating him. Because that was what was so crazy about my dad, and what was crazy about my sister and my siblings in a way. The first was he mistreated me, but he was starting to treat them better. So it was kind of like F you, he's good to me, and I'm getting his money. And that was the A part, but or at least that's what my father claimed, because he swore they were using him for his money, and he was not going to allow me to be the fourth child, alleged fourth child. Well, I am his fourth child, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's more. Um, but the problem with that is I realized at first I thought, and I had a lot of compassion for them because I understood, if if you make somebody choose between having a dad, having a paternal experience, or having a sister, having a sisterly experience, I think they would choose a father. And my anger with my father was it didn't need to be that way. I'm not his mistake. I'm a human being. His mistake was not filing divorce when he wanted to, which he would always say he was so scared. But my problem with that is, how are you so scared of confronting people that you take care of? You take care of them out of fear, but you love my mother, you love us. And those are things that he wrote in his letter and would consistently say. Um, and I felt kind of, on one hand, you can't ask somebody who doesn't know you to defend you or to kind of, at the very least, be easy on you. But what surprised me was that my father had this whole history. He left them without lights, he left them without water, he left them without food, he was constantly disappearing on them, he was always lying, aka bigamy, and he was a severe addict. He stole from clients, he stole from my mom, he stole from them. It was like he had this entire history of being a horrible human being, particularly to women. And yet she went off and confronted everybody for supposedly being mean to him. And I met my aunts. They weren't mean people. My father just didn't like confrontation. He cowered to it. And it's one of the things he would say about his other wife. She was always yelling at him. And he loved that my mom never did that, that she was kind and she was soft and that she took care of him and handled his breakdowns well. And it's like the worst gold star ever to win, you know? Um, like, what a prize. I know how to be quiet when you're weeping over yourself. Okay. And it's only something that I see in perspective of kind of that there's something really mean about her. That's not exactly what my father said. The meanness is this assumption that you're wrong and you're horrible because I'm not the victim of this person who's a known villain. And it broke my heart because I really did want siblings. I had a really lonely childhood. I was very alone. I was very bullied at school. And then I went through this time where I was popular. And even then, I was still bullied because I thought, if you go from the utmost loser to the utmost popular girl, especially via your humor, people love you. And no, there's always a bully. And I just thought my siblings would be this out because my mother was always taking me between New York and Puerto Rico. And I would go to Puerto Rico and have all these cousins and all this family, but I was still the New York, two New York for Puerto Rico, two Puerto Rico for New York. And I, when we would come back to New York and it was so lonely and so isolating and cold, like literally cold. And when I found out about my siblings, I found out about my siblings, gosh, I think I was like 7 or 8. And then I spent like the next 3 to 4 years begging my dad to let me meet them. And he would always say, I'm not ready. My other wife doesn't want that. You have to understand her. You have to understand me. And I never picked up until I was older. In hindsight, my father literally saw me as his sin. And he treated me like his bastard. But he married my mom. And I'm no one's bastard. I'm a human being. I was not a mistake. I was planned. And either way, I'm here. And he would always say, she's going to protect me. And he would talk about these stories of basically her bitching out his family. And he would do it with such pride. And that was the real shift because until it, he would tell me it was this huge debacle, her versus his sisters and his mom, and she stood her ground. And I knew it was a shift because before he just, oh God, she's annoying like her mom, she's gaining weight, she was going to be a model, all this stuff. And I always felt like my dad wanted us to have this grand fight, her versus me, especially when she sent that text message. It's time for you to know what your mother did, how you were taken from us. And I was never taken. I think my father relied on me being silent because my mother was. And my father and my mother had this interpretation that silence is honor. If you don't confront your abuser, you're holding honor. They know what they did, right? Karma will get them, but it doesn't get them. It doesn't. My dad never paid a consequence. That's what made him amazing, that he could do atrocities and walk away fine. And I that's when I realized she has a totally different concept of reality because of their lies. And I'm not going to burst that bubble. I just can't. And I thought, well, as I was writing, like, this is a person that has like a 20-year age gap from me. And he was ready to launch her by the time I was 6. I mean, my father was calling me a bitch at age 5. He had no respect for me. And I really think, and it was on 100% on purpose to turn my sister against me and turn my siblings against me. Um, and it was gradual, it was through time, and it worked. And it broke my heart because I really did feel if I can't have my dad, I can have them. And I feel bad that she will never know just how horrible he thought she was until that horrible was convenient for him, until that horrible he could turn against others. And I was never going to turn on her. Never. Even now, I excuse her behavior or what would have been her behavior because I just don't understand why we're all fighting for a criminal, over a criminal. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is somebody with a history in sight, okay? And we're fighting to say that his crimes were justified or he didn't commit them, but he did because we paid for them. We paid for them. And I'm done with that. I'm just totally, totally done with that. So check out daddyrecovery.com for all my journeys. Check out deandreviewsitall.com for all my reviews. And check out Hardin for all my music. At Hardin, you can find me on all music platforms. Follow my socials.